Certitude through supersensory perception. In our previous programs, we discussed the difference between physical and metaphysical observations. We also stated the importance of metaphysical observations through the inner senses in understanding the reality. As in physical observations, the observer is always tied to space and time. This means that all observations are relative in many aspects, like space, time, direction, state, speed, and quality, just to name a few aspects. So an observed physical phenomena can bring about many different interpretations or understandings, which are all relative to the observer. Yet the reality of the phenomenon is independent from the observations of the phenomenon by the observers. Now the question arises, can one become connected to the reality of a phenomenon directly, without being tied to the issues of relativity? Such a connection is possible only if one connects to the phenomenon through one's supersensory senses or inner senses. This type of connection, according to the spiritual seekers, can come about when the seeker becomes unified with the phenomenon, that is, through traveling from oneself towards the phenomenon by the use of supersensory senses and connecting to the phenomenon outside of space and time. This type of connection frees the observer from the ties created by space and time and the issues of relativity, and thus brings with it certitude in regards to the phenomenon. Let us examine this concept through a couple of examples. For example, consider a situation where one places the 7 colors of the rainbow next to each other on a circular disc in order of wavelength, so from the color red towards violet. When we then rotate this disc with speed, the observer suddenly sees that all the 7 colors have merged into one color, the color of white. Then, when we slow the speed of the rotation of the disc, we start to slowly see the individual colors of the rainbow again. So from this example, we understand that the speed of rotation is critical to how the observer views the colors. Thus, through this example, we can see that we are faced with one reality, which is the 7 colors on a circular disc. Yet the observations of the same reality differ according to the speed of rotation of the disc for the observer. This type of experience is an example of 2 separate observed realities that are created from one phenomenon or reality. So one can conclude, as long as we are tied by speed, space and time, we are unable to see the reality of the phenomenon as it really is, or its individual elements. Let's look at another example. That is the example of trying to measure the mass of an electron and its position. This is only possible if we can stop the electron from moving, as when it is in motion, we can't define its location. For as soon as we try to fix its location, it is already moved from that location, given that the speed of this movement is close to the speed of light. Therefore, the observer can't ever attain absolute certitude about the mass and the position of a single moving electron. However, when a seeker's soul connects to a phenomenon outside of physical senses, through the senses that are nigh to the activity of the brain, the seeker can establish a direct connection to the phenomenon and observe the phenomenon from within the phenomenon and not from outside of it. This can occur through the inner senses of a seeker. This type of connection creates certitude about the phenomenon, as it is an observation through becoming unified with the phenomenon. It is why in the Quran it speaks about the concept of certitude through sight, which occurs when an observer sees a phenomenon through one's inner senses, and thus the observer is free from the issues brought about by relativity. Thus, certitude can only come about through inner senses, as one becomes free from the world of relativity. Therefore, the seeker has access to 5 inner senses that bring certitude for the seeker, which are different to the seeker's physical senses. This is why Rumi refers to the physical senses as animal senses, and the inner senses as senses that bring about certitude for the seeker.